What up, and welcome to the Rival Fantasy Sports Show. I'm your host, Neil Maligno. I appreciate you for joining me as always. Now, as you can see in the title, we are going to discuss free agency, NFL free agency, the offseason. There was trades. There was all kinds of stuff going on. We'll talk about some of the fantasy impact as well. Now, we will, of course, discuss all of this stuff way more in depth as the season gets closer. We'll have all different kinds of episodes covering the fantasy impact of each position, each player move, all that kind of stuff. But I really wanted to kind of just chop it up with you guys, kind of, go over everything that's happened so far that's taken place and kind of get some of your thoughts as well. I really want you guys to interact in the chat today because I'm curious, what moves you guys like the most, what moves you hated, if your favorite team lost a player or got a player that you're really excited about. I want to hear from you guys. This is more about being interactive with you guys, more so than me ranting and raving about, my thoughts on every single thing. I will bring up the contracts on the screen so we can look at it and kind of see it that way. And more so, probably more the offensive stuff. We can bring up the defensive players too, but obviously the offense is what we care about the most in fantasy. I do want to remind you before we jump into all the free agency stuff, all the NFL stuff that we're going to talk about, I want to see you guys in the chat there as well, of course. So go ahead and shout out in the chat. Let me know you guys are here. I will be bringing up your questions on the screen. I'll bringing your comments up on the screen. This is fully interactive. This is not one of those live shows that you're going to watch where you're not going to be seen, you're not going to be heard, and that kind of stuff. We're going to be doing all of that. You're going to throw polls up, all kinds of stuff. So it's very important for you guys to take part in the conversation because this is about a conversation between me and you guys. Before I do that, let's go ahead and bring up why we're here in terms of who this show is presented by, and it is Rival Fantasy. If you're not familiar, then let me tell you a little bit about it. Rival Fantasy is the best all-in-one fantasy platform that you guys should be all signed up for. If you're not, definitely do that. But of course, there's all kinds of games on here, all kinds of things for you to do, and I just want to share it with you really quickly before we get into the NFL stuff. If you play fantasy football, if you play season-long fantasy football, Rival has just that. Rival has all kinds of really cool stuff in season long that other places aren't doing. We're constantly updating, upgrading, adding things. And a lot of it is stuff that we hear from the community, from the fantasy community. We are not just like some random people creating this app. We love fantasy football. We love fantasy sports. So we're doing it because we love it. So definitely go out there and check it out for season long, which you can't do right now because there's no NFL, of course, going. Then there's best ball. Now, I know you guys love some best ball. Right now, there's baseball, MLB best ball. There's NBA best ball. There will be NFL best ball, of course, once it launches. But you can go right in here. It's very clean, easy to use. Check it out. There's the Soul Series right now for MLB, NBA daily and weekly, season-long MLB. One of the big complaints you hear is where's all the fantasy baseball stuff? Where can I sign up for fantasy baseball? So we don't have the season long yet, but we do have best ball. I'm having a lot of fun. For someone like me who I love baseball, but I don't, want to do the daily, management of the season long, best ball is like perfect for me. So get in there, check that out. There's also challenges on Rival Fantasy, straight up head-to-head fantasy matchups. There's no props. There's no all these crazy, things you have to hit and do and all these parlays. It's just player versus player. This is also going to get revamped sometime in the near future challenges, but for right now, it's very simple. You pick the side you like, you put your bet amount, you place the bet. If there's a dollar amount here, that means somebody's made a bet on this player. If you want to skip it, you don't like it, you can just keep skipping along until you find something you like. You say, oh, I like this, place $1 and go. If you want to create your own challenges, you could do that. You can go into the social challenge aspect. Say you're arguing with a friend, a coworker, a family member. You can literally come in here, pick your sport, and create the challenge, the debate that you're having. I use this to settle debates a lot. It's my go-to for that. And you can just pick the players that you're debating about. Your friend's got Corbin Carroll. You like Aaron Judge. You hit continue. You pick your side. You place your amount. You place the bet. And then you just send it to them. If you're a friend with them on Rival Fantasy directly, you can just send it to them right here on the platform. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just copy the link, share it however you want. The last thing I want to tell you before we get to NFL free agency is Fantasy Bingo is also something that is very unique, only on Rival Fantasy. You buy a card, you pick your roster. There's no salary cap. There's no restrictions like that. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to hit 5 in a row any which way or 4 in a corner, and you win whatever the prize pool is at the time, depending on the kind of hit you make. You can see all that in the actual prize pool breakdown. But as you can see here, these are hits that I have. So 5 in a row with this lineup here. I hit these and I won $5.95 on this card. Every card's $1, so very low, cost of entry. And you could win, a lot depending on the situation. 1638 on this card. So it really just depends. So again, guys, this is Rival Fantasy Sports. You either download the app, Rival Fantasy Sports, in your app store, or just go to rivalfantasy.com, sign up, play today. I also have a link in the description here, which if you sign up and you're in a state that's legal to do so, you'll actually get up to $200 on your first deposit, a match, and then also a $25 free voucher. So go check that out. The link is in the bio. Now that we got that out of the way, now that we've talked about this, and again, also one more thing I don't want to forget, they have a free game on here that every single 24 hours you get one ticket to play. You shuffle the cards, you pick the card you want, you pick the card, and you literally win stuff. I mean, sometimes you'll get a loss, of course. Can't control that, but like you're getting all these free things just for logging in every day and playing and using it. So very, very cool. All right. Enough about Rival Fantasy. Let's go ahead and talk about what we're here for. To do that, I'm actually going to bring it up on the screen for us. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to use Spotrac, Spot Rack, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to, judge you for the terminology you use for this site. All right, cool. So here it is. All right. I have it right now pulled up as just offense. So I want to look at this with you guys. I want to discuss this, see what you guys are thinking, see what your thoughts are, see where your heads are at with a lot of these moves. I do want to throw up a poll in the chat as well, because with the first name here on the list, Kirk Cousins, I want to know if you guys were surprised that he went to the Falcons. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the chat. You guys go ahead and let me know what you think by the way you answer that. We'll see which way the audience is moving on this one. If people were surprised by it, or if they weren't that caught off guard, they kind of expected something like that to happen, which is, I guess it's possible. I mean, we knew they needed a quarterback. I was kind of more going along the lines of, I really thought they were going to be ones to take a shot on Justin Fields, which clearly went way different than anyone expected. It can't just be me. Were you surprised by the Kirk Cousins move for the Falcons, or, did you think of it as a logical, place early on? Were you already on board with it? Were you not surprised by it? Was it, something you were kind of thinking was, in the, realm of possibility? Now, besides Kirk, who it's funny because I don't know if it's because I play fantasy football and because we're playing fantasy football a lot, Kirk is good in fantasy football, right? He's a good quarterback to have, but in regular football fan perception, he's not a guy that's like done anything, right? Like he hasn't won Super Bowls. He hasn't necessarily had a lot of, any playoff success or anything like that. So fans always wonder, how does Kirk Cousins keep getting these contracts? And I guess for me, it didn't shock me, but maybe it's the fantasy aspect for me, right? Like maybe it's because I play fantasy and I'm so into fantasy football that my mind kind of gets stuck there sometimes. And so when I seen the amount that Kirk Cousins got, I wasn't necessarily shocked. But some people were. Some people were like, how does this guy keep getting these contracts? Like, what is going on here? I mean, literally people were like, bruh, what is going on? And I was in group chats. I'm like, why are they so surprised? I'm like, that's why. Like they're not playing fantasy. If you don't play fantasy, you kind of think Kirk Cousins is trash in a way, right? Like you kind of look at him as a guy, who just isn't that great. He's just kind of middle of the pack. And I forget that because in fantasy, I'm like, I'm not mad at Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is pretty decent in fantasy, so I don't get mad at it. But definitely, it is what it is, right? Like he's a decent quarterback in real football, not just fantasy. And these kind of things will happen. They're going to get paid. Quarterbacks are going to get paid. Besides that, there's a lot of guards, a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of tackles that got paid huge money. And they're going to be most of the guys who are up here towards the top. If you look, we got Robert Hunt, Mike Onwenu, Damian Lewis, Jonah Jackson, Lloyd Cushenberry. Like there's so many guys here. Jonah Williams, John Runyon, Tyler Beades. So all these guys got like huge contracts. So the offensive lines were getting paid. So I understand why some teams were looking to, keep some of their guys for cheaper if they could, sign them if they could before this rush happened. Guys like the Raiders signed Andre James, and some people were like, the money he got, was it bad? Was it good? But when you see some of these contracts coming out, like I get it, right? Like I get why they wanted to lock that down. And the Raiders also lost some offensive linemen. Obviously, a lot of teams lost offensive linemen because teams just weren't going to pay these prices. But besides the linemen, Calvin Ridley got $92 million. $92 million. Now, again, Calvin Ridley is super talented. If we talk about the stats, I mean, if we talk about, the numbers he put up, it was pretty decent. It wasn't bad. But at the end of the day, I felt a little lackluster in terms of, he was kind of inconsistent. What do you want to blame that on, right? Do you want to blame that on the Chargers? Do you want to blame that on Trevor Lawrence? Do you want to go that route? Or do you want to say it's something I know, come on, Neil, give him a break. He just came back. He was suspended with all these things. I hear you, but $92 million is a lot of money. And if we really break it down, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the weeds on the contracts in terms of, Neil, it's really just a 1-year deal with, the last 2 years aren't guaranteed. I don't want to get into all that right now. Because again, that's for another episode. It's not that fun to break it all down until you have all the information in front of you and kind of break it down that way. But just in general, were you guys surprised the Titans did this? Obviously, the Titans are trying to, put weapons around their quarterback, around Levis. And, it's obviously something they've needed for a while. They traded AJ Brown a while back. And ever since then, they haven't had that guy, right? They haven't had that guy to go to in terms of, I mean, and I'm not saying, do you think Calvin Ridley is on AJ Brown level? Like, do you see it that way? I'm assuming that's what they're seeing, right? Like, I'm assuming they're looking at it as like, he's going to be our AJ Brown. It was a mistake trading him. He's going to be our AJ Brown. We got DeAndre Hopkins here. Other than those two, it's kind of bland at wide receiver. And then you got Tony Pollard, who they signed, who's also here on the list. Let me bring it back up. All right. A bunch of running backs went everywhere, so we could really talk about them all. But I just want to say Tony Pollard signed with Tennessee, $21 million on 3 years. Again, they're trying to put this offense behind Levis. They're trying to boost things up here. They're trying to make some exciting things happen. They're trying to give him weapons. That way, there's no excuses. So when you look at on paper, running back Tony Pollard, wide receivers Calvin Ridley and Hopkins and Treylon Burks. So let me forget Burks. I'll be disrespecting Treylon Burks if I act like he's not there. Okonkwo at tight end, who was, kind of like on that edge every single week. Like, is he going to break out? Is he going to be that guy that we think he could be? So pretty interesting offense, right? I mean, just on paper, and assuming Will Levis steps up a notch, takes it another level up, just being in his second year and that kind of stuff. Again, new coaches, all kinds of new stuff happening there. Will the defense be, good enough to carry them still? Who knows? But just on paper, Calvin Ridley, $92 million for 4 years seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of money. But again, is it, I mean, when you're in this kind of situation, do you really care? Like, do you think you get the playmaker of the future for your team potentially? Because that's what they're thinking, right? That's what they're thinking when they put that contract out there. They're thinking this is the wide receiver of the future for us. This is the guy that, is going to be our savior. This is him. So I understand that, that's how they're looking at it. I just don't know if it's a little, premature, a little bit too much money, because when we look at the other wide receivers, right? Like Darnell Mooney got 3 years, almost $40 million. Gabe Davis, 3 years, $40 million. So is Calvin Ridley that much more valuable than those kind of guys? Is he that much more talented? Is he that much more, of a world beater? It's up to you, to decide in terms of like, well, how much, like, again, we don't know how good Gabe Davis is going to be now outside of Buffalo without Diggs on the opposite side of him. Will he break out? Will he continue to fall short? Because if we're talking just from a stats perspective, of course, Calvin Ridley is better than Gabe Davis. Of course, Calvin Ridley is better than Darnell Mooney. Again, these are kind of guys, and you could look at it that way. You could be like, Neil, I think it's more crazy that they got $40 million. I think it's crazy that Gabe Davis and Darnell Mooney got $40 million. You could definitely say that more so than, than Calvin Ridley getting what he got in terms of what have those two done, right? I mean, Gabe Davis outside the top 40 at wide receiver. I'm speaking from fantasy perspective here, but outside the top 40 in PPR scoring, so not anywhere near, Calvin Ridley. Darnell Mooney outside the top 50. I think he was in the 80s. Calvin Ridley finished as what? Top 20? So, I mean, they're not in his realm. They're not in his ballpark. So I get it, right? Like if you're looking at it that way, I get it. Curtis Samuel got $24 million for 3 years. I mean, Devin Duvernay, 8.5 for 2 years. So it really just depends on, the market wasn't nice. Here's the interesting one right here. Marquise Brown went to the Chiefs. He's chasing a championship. I can't knock it. I cannot knock this. And understand that I'm a Raiders fan. So I hate to see the Chiefs get this kind of situation. I hate when these things happen, but that's kind of making me a hater, if we're being honest. Right? I mean, that's kind of making me a hater, which I am. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not happy to see, the Chiefs get Marquise Brown for $7 million for one season as he chases a championship. I'm not happy to see that. Why would I want to see that for? But it makes sense for all parties, right? Like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs need more wide receiver targets. Marquise Brown provides something they don't have. That is a good deal, right? I'll take Marquise Brown 1 year, $7 million over the Calvin Ridley deal all day long. But obviously Marquise Brown is, given a discount, if you will, to the Chiefs for the 1 year. He's just hoping, listen, I'll take the $7 million. It's still no chump change. On that same token, it's just 1 year. I might win me a championship. I'm giving myself the best chance to win a championship. And then once he gets that out of the way, then he can go for a bigger contract. Imagine you have a crazy career year with Patrick Mahomes. You win a Super Bowl, or you go on a really crazy playoff run, and you're out there proving to the world, hey, look at me. I'm on the biggest stage of my career. Look what I'm doing for this Chiefs offense. It's a great way to cash in next year. I still like Rashee Rice there more, and I think Rashee Rice is one of the better young wide receivers in the league, so I don't think necessarily like they needed to have Marquise Brown, but it's a beautiful asset to have, a beautiful luxury to have when you're the Chiefs and you're in this position. Let's bring it back up here. All right, so we talked about Kirk Cousins. We talked about some of these wide receivers. When it comes to quarterbacks outside of Kirk Cousins, the next biggest one was Gardner Minshew, right? I mean, Gardner Minshew, Tyrod Taylor went to the Jets as a backup, so that's a much better backup for the Jets behind Aaron Rodgers. Much better. Sam Darnold, Minnesota. I don't really care that much. I believe they're going to get a young quarterback and go with him. Jacoby Brissett back to the Patriots. That's good for Jacoby. You don't even get shocked if he actually gets to start there. I wouldn't be shocked at all, to be honest with you. That may sound crazy, but I really wouldn't be surprised. Mariota to Washington, Trubisky to Buffalo. I don't care about most of these. Drew Lock to the Giants. I don't really care. Jameis Winston to Cleveland to back up Deshaun Watson. Makes sense. I mean, it's, behind him has been important, right? Because Deshaun Watson's gone down a lot. So he's gotten injured a lot, and, they need to back up. Mason Rudolph. Ugh. The 49ers get Dobbs. Again, feels like a luxury of some sort. I like Dobbs a lot. I think he's a great backup. I think he's one of the better backups in the league. So shout out to them for that move. Again, you're going to see some of those moves where teams who are at the top of the league, the elite teams, are going to get players for somewhat cheap on 1 year deals to, chase those championships, put themselves in a decent position. It's not surprising at all. Now, the one quarterback that I didn't really talk about, Gardner Minshew. We've seen the numbers, 2 years, $25 million. It's kind of really a 1 year deal. Now, the question people are asking here, and again, I'm a Raiders fan, so I'm a little more close to this one. Is Gardner Minshew signed to be the starter? That's a lot of people ran with this. $25 million. This is a pretty big contract. The Raiders went out and signed him pretty quickly into free agency. Why would they do that unless they want him to be the starter? So let me just give you my answer. I don't think he's the starter. Well, I don't think he was signed with the intention of being the starter. Are they happy if that's their fallback option and it's, between him and Aiden O'Connell and they're fighting it out and whoever does better gets the job? I mean, they rolled with Aiden O'Connell last season. And they weren't that bad about it. They did pretty good. As long as the defense can stay, at a high level like it was, and they have the weapons that they have, any quarterback that's halfway competent can make things happen with, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. They were making things happen. Tucker. You got a young tight end. The running back situation got a little weird now that you lost Josh Jacobs, which again, we'll talk about in a second. But when you think about these kind of things, when you think about the fact that Gardner Minshew gets signed for this big amount, it tells you that they're comfortable with him being the starter or the backup, right? I don't think it'll come down to just O'Connell and Minshew. I do believe that no matter what they come out of the draft with a quarterback, whether they trade up to get the actual starter, whether they, trade back up into the first round towards the back end of it to get someone like Penix, if it's, a later second, third round quarterback, they just kind of want to see if they can, make things happen with and let Minshew or O'Connell start first. I'm not surprised by that at all. So definitely, Minshew was signed for that money for a reason, right? And not necessarily to be the starter. I'm not saying to be the starter, but if he had to be the starter, they wouldn't be upset about it, right? That makes sense, right? So they gave him good money, good backup money. We've seen him play with the Colts last season. He did really well. He did really well when Richardson came out, which was unfortunate. He got hurt, and Minshew came in there and really played well. So he's one of the better backups you could really have, honestly. So they paid him the money he deserved to get that. Will he beat out Aiden O'Connell? I don't know, right? Like, your guess is as good as mine. A lot of the players, I'm sure, are going to go to bat for Aiden O'Connell. He played decent last year in his rookie season, but at the end of the day, you have to look at O'Connell and go, what's the ceiling here, right? Like, he didn't seem very mobile. He didn't seem like he had a lot of stuff going on from a, escape in the pocket kind of vibe, which, when you don't have that at all as an option, it hurts. So potentially that's why they signed Minshew. They go, hey, listen, let these two go at it. May the best man win, or may the best man be the backup, because we're going to go trade up for, one of these top flight quarterbacks. I seen a report earlier today. I don't know how bogus it was or how real it was, but that like the Patriots may not want a quarterback. And in theory, somebody could trade up to try to get one. I think it was Justina Anderson. Again, I don't know if the tweet was real. I didn't look at it long enough, but it's an idea, right? All right, back to the board here, back to the sheet. Now, what we haven't talked about yet on this list is the running backs. The running backs really kicked this thing off and went crazy. The running backs kicked this off and went nuts when free agency started. It went crazy. Let's just go down the names really quick first. Let's just go down the names. Josh Jacobs leaves the Raiders, goes to the Packers. Saquon Barkley leaves the Giants, goes to the Eagles. DeAndre Swift leaves the Eagles, goes to Chicago. So we got some carousel going on here, a little, musical chairs. Tony Pollard leaves Dallas and goes to Tennessee, which we mentioned earlier. Devin Singletary leaves Houston and goes to the Giants, which don't discount that deal right there. Don't discount that signing. I know it's Devin Singletary. I know a lot of people like to knock him. I know it's funny to do. But as I said last year, going into last season, I was, when we talk about fantasy even, I was like, hey, listen, I'm not a believer in Dameon Pierce. They signed Devin Singletary under our new coaching staff because they're not crazy about Dameon Pierce either. And Devin Singletary proved that he was actually the better running back in Houston last year. I really don't think if you put him on behind a good offensive line and you let him run that ball, that he's that bad. Now, is he going to change everything for your team? No. Is he going to put the offense on his back if you don't have anything else really going on? Of course not. But just from a perspective of, is he a decent running back? Yes, he is. Is he going to get the job done? Sure. He'll make a lot of things happen back there. No doubt. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt that he's going to, be a decent back. Now, who else will he have back there with him? Will they draft somebody? Are they ultimately going to give someone a little more, is he just kind of a backup depth play for them? Who knows? We'll see what they end up doing ultimately, but I don't think you should ignore him. Derrick Henry leaves the Titans after, the best career you could possibly have as a running back and goes to the Ravens, which got a lot of attention, got a lot of love because no one likes to run the ball better than Baltimore. Of course, they have a quarterback who runs the ball a lot. He runs it like a running back and puts up numbers like a running back. So that's part of the reason why the Ravens run so well. But Derrick Henry is like a perfect fit for that offense. And him and Lamar Jackson are going to be kind of unstoppable back there for sure. Antonio Gibson, a little more under the radar signing, but he went to New England. I don't think that should be ignored. I'm an Antonio Gibson fan. If you've been following me for years, I've always liked Antonio Gibson. I think that, he gets underused in some places. He kind of falls behind in some places, but New England, we got to see how these coaches work and everything, but there's definitely a role that could be, filled out there for him. DJ Dallas to Arizona, Zach Moss to Cincy, which is another really interesting one. They get rid of, Joe Mixon. We've seen Zach Moss do really well in Indy last year. So again, kind of feels like the Devin Singletary situation. Zach Moss, they actually were teammates at one point, and here they both are on new teams after proving themselves last year on teams that it was kind of an iffy situation. Nobody went in like super confident that they were going to play really well. And when they did get their chances, they did play really well. So now you have him in Cincinnati, which again, it's not going to be just him, right? Chase Brown is there. They may draft somebody, who knows, we'll see, but it's still one that I wouldn't ignore. I wouldn't ignore it. Aaron Jones leaves Green Bay after the Josh Jacobs situation, which we'll talk about, and he goes to Minnesota. I mean, I didn't see that one coming. I don't think anyone's seen that coming. I don't think anyone's seen the Jacobs, in Green Bay and Aaron Jones out in Green Bay. I don't think many people were predicting that. So that was another interesting situation that's developed and changed in fantasy. AJ Dillon stayed with Green Bay. I think he's the only player here the only running back who actually stayed with his team. A couple other ones, smaller ones, Chase Edmonds, Rico Dowdle, even Alexander Madison signed. So there's a couple of other guys. Oh, also Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler has a new home. He's out of the Chargers backfield, which felt like, it was unstoppable at one point. Austin Eckler was unstoppable at one point, right? Like in fantasy and dynasty, I had him and I would never trade him. I would never move off on him. No matter what the offer was, I'm keeping Austin Eckler. That's my boy. He's going to put up big numbers. And every single year he was doing it. And then it just started to fall off. And we can blame multiple things. And I've talked about this in other videos, which you can get on the YouTube channel, which I highly recommend you subscribe. Hold on, before we go any further. Subscribe to the channel, please. I appreciate it. It means everything to me. That's what helps this channel, find new, audience members, find new members for our community, continue to grow, continue to blossom. It gives us, more and more motivation to put out more and more content for you guys, because as the audience grows, there's more and more needs and more things that you guys want to hear and talk about. And you guys are a part of it and you're jumping in the conversation. And I can't thank you enough when you guys do that. So definitely, spread the word, share it, subscribe, like this video, like this episode. It means the world to us. I'd really appreciate that. Now, again, back to Austin Eckler. I wouldn't trade him. I wouldn't move off of him. I was totally, loving him on my fantasy teams, and I didn't want to see anybody else have the success from him, right? And then this past season, it just kind of fell off. It fell off. And as I talked about on previous episodes, we can blame a lot of things for the Austin Eckler fall off. We can blame injuries. We can blame, him getting older. We can blame, just the Chargers offense and Herbert getting hurt, all these things. But he finished as, in PPR as a number 26 running back. Never did I think I would hear something like this. Never would I predict Austin Eckler to fall off that fast. So do I, think there's a chance he could rebound, that he can, improve next season? Of course. Of course. I think that Washington can figure out a way, to make it work and to make him look better and make him improve those numbers. Do I think, if you're asking me, hey, Neil, will Austin Eckler be a top 5 running back again? I don't think so. I think those days are behind us. The Austin Eckler, top 3, top 5, top 10. Could he get into the top 15? Maybe. Could he crack the top 20? For sure. Sure. I mean, we don't have to write him off just yet. That window is still open. And who knows, when a guy's out there trying to prove it, he might feel disrespected. He might have a chip on his shoulder. He might be, feeling that pressure to, show the Chargers that they were the reason that he was struggling, that they were wrong, and that he was still the guy that he is. And it kind of, and he's a guy who's really tapped into the community, to the football community, to the fantasy community. He's really involved. So there's no doubt he's not one of those guys who are not seeing what people are saying. He's not ignoring it. He's not acting like it's not happening. Like, he's a pretty vocal dude. So I think that it wouldn't shock me to see him improve in Washington. But again, I'm not going to get crazy and say, oh, he's going to be a top 5 running back again, or, he's going to be top 10. I'll never say never on anything, but it's not really one of those things you want to say that's the prediction, That's not something you want to put your money on, in other words. Let's bring the contracts back up. All right. Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is an interesting one, right? Like, has been crushing it in fantasy the last few seasons, has crushed it for the Raiders the last few seasons. There's no question, how important he is or how important he was to that Raiders offense. And so did he get hurt at the end of the year? Yes. And, that hurt everybody. It hurt the Raiders. It hurt fantasy. It hurt everybody. But for the most part, Josh Jacobs is one of the better backs in the league. If he can stay healthy, there's no question he could be a top 5 running back in the league. So the Packers get a really good player here. The players get a monster in Josh Jacobs, and he seems happy, right? I mean, his big thing this whole time was, he wanted to be respected and he wanted to get the contract that he deserved. And, everyone talks about when the player leaves, why, they blame them for loyalty issues when really the team that you left could be the loyalty issue. I hear him. Listen, running backs are very replaceable, right? They're that position where it sounds wrong. It sounds rude. It sounds like you're being disrespectful, but it's just a fact that it's easier to find running backs. And as they age, they become less and less of value. And it is the way it is, right? And so the Raiders drafted Josh Jacobs in the first round. That's respect. They kept trying to re-sign him and sign him and sign him. That's all respect. Every player on the Raiders loved him. No one, was hating on him or talking down on him. So for sure, he was respected in Las Vegas and everyone wanted him back, right? Like even Devontae Adams said, he's been in this business a long time. He knows these kind of things happen, but this one stings because Josh Jacobs was a big part of the offense. There's no doubt about it. But he wanted to leave because he wanted more money. He wanted more. And the funny thing is, like, the contract's not even fully guaranteed, right? Like, and I said I'm not going to go into really into depth on this, but this 4-year, $48 million is not really a 4-year, $48 million contract. Like, let's just be clear on that. It's not really what it looks like. But hey, he got a contract, I guess, that he liked to see the way it looked. And, he believes, that it'll work out for him. I hope he's right. I'm not going to hate on him at all. But again, interesting situation. I think he's a better running back than Aaron Jones. I think we'll definitely see that play out that way. It's interesting that they kept AJ Dillon, so it'll still be kind of a duo back there, I'm sure, in some sense. But just like with Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon didn't matter that much when Aaron Jones was healthy, right? Like AJ Dillon's only going to matter when Josh Jacobs is hurt because Josh Jacobs is a guy you sign and you just feed him the ball and feed him the ball and feed him the ball and feed him the ball. And you don't really think twice about it. So, yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs is going to be the man in Green Bay. He's going to score plenty. As long as he can stay healthy, he will score plenty. There's no question about it. So that you don't even got to worry about. That's not even one you got to question. Saquon Barkley, same thing. I'm not questioning, how is he going to perform, I'm not like, oh, is Saquon Barkley going to play good with Philly? He's Saquon Barkley. Of course he is. Of course he is. He's going to be great. Again, barring health. As long as there's no health issues, health concerns, he gets hurt, all this kind of stuff, then, things can obviously get tricky, but I don't expect it. Now, we've looked at the quarterbacks. We looked at a lot of the offensive line. We talked about it really quick, not in depth, of course. We talked about some of these wide receivers, these running backs. As far as tight ends go, I know I did a video recently where I said tight end is exciting right now in fantasy. It's an exciting position. It is, but not really any of the big names are moving or shaking or any of that kind of stuff. There are some tight ends who moved around. Kobe Parkinson got a 3-year 22.5 with the Rams. That's pretty significant. That's a pretty, big dollar amount. Fant re-signed with Seattle for 2 years, 21 million. I'm sorry. So again, they liked him. They brought him back. Pretty good stuff. Will Dissly signed with the Chargers for 3 years, 14 million. Gerald Everett left the Chargers and signed with the Bears for 2 years, 12 million. They got Cole Kmet already. I mean, the Bears are an offense who did a lot of stuff this year. I mean, let's talk about that. Like, what do we think about the Bears offense? The Bears did a lot of stuff because we're talking about contracts here. We haven't even talked about trades. We haven't even talked about trades yet. And they've been wheeling and dealing because you don't think we were going to leave this episode without talking about some trades that went down during the offseason. That's definitely happening. We're definitely going to talk about some trades. we're going to talk about some trades that the Bears made, because they made a few of them, a couple of them, that are very interesting. And we're going to pull them up and talk about them really quick. The first one that I do want to speak on, let me go ahead and bring it up on the screen here for you, is this one. This is from Steel Carton. But great in the Justin Fields trade. Steelers swindled the Bears once more. I will say that this trade was the biggest shock to me in fantasy. I mean, in football this year, in the offseason. And not that I didn't think Justin Fields was going to get traded. Not that that's surprising. But for what they traded him for, where they traded him to, very interesting, to say the least, if that's the word we want to use. I'll bring up this here to kind of give an idea of what I'm referring to. Let me share this. This is from our feed on X, Twitter, whatever you guys want to still call it. Did the Bears get good value in the Justin Fields trade? The options everyone had was Fields is bad, so yeah, hell no, got robbed, or who cares because Caleb is here. As you can see the results, Fields is bad, so yeah, not very many votes. There's probably one person there. I don't know who said this. Probably some bitter, Bears fan. Bitter Bears fan who wants to act like, and try to talk themselves into the fact that they think this is a good deal. Who cares? Caleb is here. Again, probably Bears fans trying to not think about the trade too much, trying to find the positives, the silver lining, or maybe just fans in general of the NFL, and they're just happy to see Caleb Williams. And the one that got over 80% of the votes, hell no, they got robbed. Hell no, the Bears got robbed. Now, you could say, Neil, you just said you knew he was going to get traded. I did, right? Like, we assumed that. I didn't know. But we all assumed that Justin Fields was going to get traded, or they were going to trade the pick. It was one or the other, right? Like, everyone went into this offseason saying, what are the Bears going to do? Are they going to trade Justin Fields, or are they going to trade the pick? Because to everyone, just on the outside looking in, it didn't make sense any other way. And for a while there, it felt like, okay, maybe they'll trade the pick. Nah, they like the idea of adding Caleb Williams, getting a quarterback back on a rookie contract. They feel like he's a special quarterback. So Justin Fields is out the door. Now, who's going to be the lucky team to get Justin Fields services? That's what we're all thinking, right? Even as a Raiders fan, I'm thinking, I would love the Raiders to trade for Justin Fields. I am not a Justin Fields hater. I am not someone who will sit here and knock Justin Fields and say he's not a good player, or that, it's his fault that the Bears are struggling. I think Justin Fields is a good quarterback, could be an even better quarterback as he continues to mature, grow, and get better. But I love the fact that he can run the ball like he does. I think that, he had a great season with DJ Moore, which showed me that he can feed a number one wide receiver the way they should probably be, fed passes and targets, and they can find success that way. Obviously, he had a little bit of injuries, which, in this kind of situation is concerning when it's a quarterback who runs the ball a lot. But again, I was a Justin Fields supporter. I'm still a Justin Fields supporter. So with that being said, he didn't go anywhere people were predicting. Now, some people were like, when a team is in the corner like the Bears are, where people know they have to draft, they're going to draft a quarterback, maybe people aren't going to give up a first for Justin Fields, which maybe would have happened if the Bears didn't have an early pick, the first pick of all picks. Or, maybe they'll get a second round pick, or a couple seconds, or a couple thirds, like maybe, something like that. Nope. None of that happened. It came to the point where there was no market for Justin Fields. There was nobody who wanted him, apparently, because the Steelers got him, and it was a steal. It was a steal. And sure, you could say, Neil, I know it's, a pick, but it could be a better pick if he plays, does this. Okay. He's not going to play because they just signed Russell Wilson for like $1 million. And now they can let Justin Fields, learn behind him, watch the veteran do what he does, watch how he performs, watch how he carries himself. But and they say this will be a competition, a quarterback competition. Will it though? Will it? Because if you told Russell Wilson that he's getting the starting job, really, then you kind of assume it's not an open competition. But I did see this tweet from Ian Rappaport, which I thought was interesting, about this, trade that took place in terms of the Justin Fields trade. Let's pull this up really quick. See what you guys think of this one. Important note on the Justin Fields trade: at least 4 additional teams inquired about trading for Fields, but Fields' representation asked for him not to be traded there. He wanted the Steelers, and the Bears did right by him. Do you believe this? Do you believe this information, or do you think that this is something that the agent or somebody is pushing out there? They want this narrative out there. Do you believe this narrative? I'm curious. I'm really curious if you guys believe this narrative. I'm also curious. I'm ending the poll now. Most votes were yes, shocked that, or surprised that Kirk Cousins got traded to the Falcons. But I want to see now just what people in the chat are thinking in terms of, do you think the Bears got a good deal? Let me see here. Let's see how we want to word it. Okay. All right. The poll is up for whether you believe Justin Fields was traded in a good deal for the Bears, or if the Bears got fleeced. But again, I'm not buying this narrative that Justin Fields asked the team to trade him to the Steelers and the Steelers only. I believe the market wasn't there. I believe that maybe there were some other teams that were interested, and maybe he was less interested in them because maybe he didn't see a path to the starting job as much, or he didn't like the situation as much. I can believe that. I just don't believe that it would have been an issue for Justin Fields if he would have got traded somewhere else. I don't believe that, because I don't really see the Steelers as a good situation unless they're willing to really have an open competition. But if in the back of their minds they're really just letting Russell Wilson start, then I'm not digging this move. But for the Steelers, you get Russell Wilson for $1 million. And I'm saying that I know it's not really $1 million, but it's pretty much $1 million. And you get Justin Fields for like nothing. I mean, they got the best moves of the offseason in terms of, how do you add Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and all you gave up was a couple million and a draft pick, a bad one? If you would have told us coming into the offseason that was going to take place, nobody would have believed you. Nobody would have believed you. It's insane. It's crazy. And then you're thinking, okay, so the Bears are going to draft a new quarterback. They're going to get Caleb Williams. That's the route they're going to go, right? They added DeAndre Swift. And again, I know some Bears fans who are not happy about the way things played out for this team. They think that it's a young team. If you're going to start over with Caleb Williams, your expectations shouldn't be too high with the rookie quarterback. You're spending money in a bunch of different crazy places. You're making trades. They're not digging the return on Justin Fields, so they're not really happy. My guess is the Bears are going to try, they think they're going to do a Houston Texans type turnaround. They think they're going to add Caleb Williams. He's going to play like CJ Stroud in terms of being an awesome leader and winning games. He's going to get them to the playoffs. And so that's my assumption on what the Bears are trying to do and what they think they're going to do. And there's probably Bear fans out there who I've talked to who don't believe that's possible. That's not the route they should go. It's not the route they should take. They should give it a little more time, exercise a little more patience. So when they seen this move, they weren't happy either. They were more confused. The Bears traded for Keenan Allen. Long time Chargers wide receiver, his whole career, one of the best wide receivers in football, no question about it. And all of a sudden, the offense looks like it's trying to compete now. But you trade away Justin Fields. You're going with a rookie quarterback. So you're going to have Caleb Williams at quarterback. You're going to have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen at wide receiver. That's one of the best wide receiver corps in the league. Cole Kmet at tight end, one of the better tight ends in the league. You added DeAndre Swift at running back. I mean, the offense looks ready to go. The offense looks like, the Bears offense is like, we're trying to win now with our rookie quarterback. And again, fans are going to take different approaches, feelings towards how that should be, whether the Bears should have took some more patience with this. You're getting the rookie quarterback. Why are you trading for veterans? They have a point, if you're looking at it that way. So I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at that point of view. It does have logic. It makes sense. Because typically that's what you're trying to do. Typically that's, you're trying to, if you're drafting a rookie quarterback, you're kind of starting young, you're kind of starting over, although it's not always the case. It's not always the case. A lot of the teams who are picking early in the draft are doing that, but it's not always a complete rebuild like that. Because again, I would believe that the Raiders, are trying to add a quarterback, potentially a rookie quarterback, but I don't really necessarily believe they're in a rebuild. I don't necessarily, believe it's a rebuild year for them. I don't think that. I don't look at it as like, oh, the Raiders are rebuilding. Even if they add a rookie quarterback, even if the rookie quarterback is a starter, I don't look at it as they're rebuilding. So I get it. I see both sides of it. I definitely do. Let me bring this back up here. I think we covered most of the free agency stuff here. I don't think there's any things that we've missed out on from the tracker here that I think are interesting, that I think are worth talking about on this conversation. Of course, there will be conversations about, plenty of ways to break this down. There's going to be plenty of ways for us to look at this. There's going to be plenty of things that are going to happen. There's still going to be things happening after this episode, right? Like, is Brandon Ayuk going to get traded? Is that going to happen? Is Stephon Diggs going to get traded? These are all names that we're hearing, out there right now. There's potential for these guys to get traded. Will they? We'll see. Will they get moved? Who knows? Kenny Pickett got traded to the Eagles. Sam Howell got traded to the Seahawks. Desmond Ridder got traded to the Cardinals. So quarterbacks were getting traded. Rondale Moore went to the Falcons. So there was moves happening. Mac Jones went to the Jaguars. Oh, Joe Mixon to the Texans. I don't really want to, I don't want to let that pass by. Deontay Johnson to the Panthers. But again, Jerry Jeudy to the Browns. Like, there's so much to cover that we can't do it in this one episode. And we'll dig more deeper into each one of these situations. And of course, I always tell you guys to chime in, whether it's in the comments, whether it's in the chat. If there's certain things you want us to, dive deeper on, we'll dive deeper on. If there's things you want us to really discuss more in depth, we will. Everything we do here is to cater to you guys, to make sure that we're bringing the best, entertainment, advice, information, bringing value to you guys. So that's always the goal. It's always the goal. It's always the goal what we're trying to do here. And we're going to continue to do that. But the Joe Mixon situation, I just got done saying how I thought Devin Singletary did pretty decent for the Texans, but the Joe Mixon is a level up, of course. As long as he can stay healthy, Joe Mixon, one of the better backs in the league. Of course, he's getting up there a little bit. He's 27, maybe 28, somewhere around there. So he's not old. So there's still some room there. You know what I mean? I think he definitely brings, some new stuff to the offense. I think he's definitely a better all-around running back. Definitely more of the guy who could put the team on his back in the running game when needed. Also out of the backfield as a pass catcher. So again, another offense that, man, will it be fun? Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon, CJ Stroud. Hell of an offense, hell of a defense. Exciting team. Just exciting. Jerry Jeudy got traded to the Browns, got a new fat contract. Some people surprised by the numbers, Some people think that, whoa, what's going on here? Why is Jerry Jeudy getting so much money? Broncos didn't even want him. They didn't even want him that badly. And all of a sudden he's worth, all this crazy cash. We'll talk about it. We will talk about it more in depth. I promise you, we'll get to that. But I do want to wrap up today's episode. We're almost on an hour. I don't want to go too crazy on you guys. Again, we'll talk about these more in depth. Put in the comments, though, which players, which situations you want us to talk about more, you want us to go in depth on first, because we're going to cover all of them at some point. But whatever you guys prefer, we can kind of target that area and go there first with it. If we're hearing a certain name a lot, a certain player, a certain team, we can really, get to that first. But if we don't, if it's kind of a mixed bag and there's no real specific plays, we could start on different teams, different positions, whatever the case may be. There's definitely a ton of different ways, to look at it, and we will, do all of that. I do want to remind you guys one more time also about Rival Fantasy. Again, make it your home for your next NFL season-long league. Give it a shot. Start a league there. Get on there and do that. Go on there and play some best ball. And it's really simple too. The best ball to play in some of these, like for instance, this is for the MLB that's starting out there in Seoul. All you do is you either create a private league, just straight up copy the settings here for your friends, family, coworkers, whatever, or just join the league. Right, $5. You could use your bonuses if you have any, some vouchers if you have any, and you just join the league. Boom, you're in. Now you just wait for it to fill, and the draft will kick off. You have NBA daily drafts, which these are for tomorrow, for instance, if you're watching today on the 19th. Then you got the NBA weekly drafts, which are for the week that, you click on it, it'll tell you which games it's for. That way you don't have to, do any guessing. So this is for next week. And then you have MLB full season, which, like, for instance, this one needs 5 more teams. You guys can jump in there, join with us. Those are full season. And these ones are quick. They're not slow drafts. None of these are slow. These are all going to be fast drafts. Once it fills, there's a 5-minute timer that warns everybody, hey, the draft is going to kick off in 5 minutes. Once it does, that's it. 45 seconds per pick is very fast. Again, if say you wanted to do the NBA for tomorrow, you would just click it. You would see the rules. If you want to look at the games that are being played, what positions are needed, you can check out the scoring system. You hit join league, and you're in. And now you're just waiting for the other person to fill it up. Once they do, that draft will start in 5 minutes. From when they join, you'll get an alert. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. And then once you do that, you're in. You're in just like that. Challenges. MLB, NBA. You skip through them. You find the ones you like. You can also create your own, whatever's, your cup of tea. MLB, for instance, right here, which just started today. We just launched this for bingo and for challenges because the season's just coming back. Again, you can play MLB best ball, challenges, fantasy bingo. It's all there. And for bingo, you just want to make sure you switch over, depending on which one, you want to play in. $1 per card. Very simple, very easy. You buy the card. You pick the players you want at each position. You lock them all in. There's no salary caps, none of that kind of stuff. You pick the very best players you like. If you have a certain strategy you're coming into it with, I mix it all up. Sometimes I'll buy 1 card for each lineup. Sometimes I'll buy 10 cards for one lineup if I'm feeling really strong about it. But again, a really fun game, only unique to Rival Fantasy. All right, guys. That's it for me today. I appreciate you guys for joining me as always. Of course, I want you to go ahead, please hit the subscribe button. It means the world to us. We do all this for you guys. So we want to continue to be able to do that. And to do that, we need you guys to subscribe. So we appreciate it, liking this video, sharing it. It all means the world to us. I can't thank you guys enough. You can also follow us on any social media platform like Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok. All those platforms, we're out there at Rival Fantasy. Or you can download the Rival Fantasy Sports app. Go to the website. You can add us as friends on there. My name is Clock Dodgers on there. ClockDodgers. Check out the link in the description. We also have a Discord. Before I bounce, I do want to tell you that we have a Discord. And I really want you to check it out. I have it in the comments, in the description of this episode. The link is there. No charge to join, no membership fees. Just a really cool place for you guys. We just started it up because we want to talk to you guys about sports, and we don't always want to have to be live on YouTube for us to do that. It's a great way to, chop it up with you guys. We talk about the app on there, of course. You'll hear first about updates and new features that are coming. There'll be, people posting best ball leagues and all kinds of bingo cards and challenges on there so you guys can join in with the community. And again, there's also just general chats in there. Talk about MLB, NFL, NBA, fantasy football, whatever it is. So go check those out. Again, all these things are in the description of this episode, so go check it out. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Neil Maligno. You can find me at Clock Dodgers on Twitter or just at Rival Fantasy. I can, message you either one. Hit me up if you have any questions, feedback, thoughts. Hit us with a comment here on this video All comments go answered. Challenge me if you don't believe so. Drop a comment. I will respond. That is it for today's episode, guys. I appreciate you as always, and I'm out.